It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I am Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host Smitty. Go follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. If you're not watching the show already, go subscribe to the channel over on YouTube. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a video, and leave a like on the videos. Also, go follow us wherever you listen to the podcast, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. We are there. Follow the channel. Leave a review, 5-star review. And let us know anything. I know on you can comment on Spotify. If you're listening to this and you listen on Spotify, leave a comment because I'd love to see a comment. What is that reaction for, by the way? This is the Penguins show.
So
I want to know what
this
that
is the
reaction
Penguins
is.
show, which is why you're getting that reaction in real time. The Penguins are playing right now. They just tied the Flyers at 4. They just came back and tied this game at 4. This is rare that you guys are getting this, by the way. We're recording while the game is going on, but just with the way the schedules were for us this week, we're recording during the game. But anyways.
And for how uninteresting the Penguins have been recently, it seemed like a sacrifice we were willing to make. But yeah, so I guess we should have a few reactions to start this show. Tough game against the Flyers on Thursday night. Tough overtime loss. What a great game against the Flyers. A late comeback, overtime win.
Sid
overtime when he drops to a knee, you know it's going in. No, seriously, we're recording during Thursday night on this show, and the Penguins have tied it 4-4 against the Islanders. 17 and a half minutes left in the regulation. But yeah, so we'll talk about the Penguins while they're playing, and then who knows, maybe by the end of this, we will have a better idea of the outcome of the game that's currently happening. But honestly, like, not a ton have happened since we last recorded a Penguins episode. There's only been a few games. Those games have sucked. So it's not like they're going to be enjoyable to talk about. But a lot happened with the NHL because we did have the Four Nations tournament, which I don't know how much you enjoyed it. I loved it. It was awesome. It was way better than any NHL All-Star experience, despite Canada getting the win. And unfortunately, the United States losing in overtime. It was fantastic. And if it's true that they're going to alternate doing a Olympics on obviously the Olympic years, and then every 2 years they're going to have a World Cup of hockey. Sign me up, because I feel like hockey is one of the rare sports for the United States specifically where you can rally a country around your sports team. I feel like there's only 2 sports that you can really do that in, and that is, at least team sports, I should say, and that is hockey and soccer. I don't think that the country has as much national pride when it comes to sports as it does whenever you are playing hockey on a national level, or soccer on a national level, and even soccer to a lower extent, but still, like, when the World Cup is playing, everybody's interested in soccer. I feel the same way about hockey. Basketball, it's a little different. Like, obviously they have the Olympics and stuff, but like the U.S. men's national team is typically so dominant that I just don't think that it has like the same drive as the other ones. Nobody else plays football. Like, it would just be like us in Canada, and we would just wipe the floor with them. And then baseball, like, what's the last thing they did in baseball? They don't play baseball in the Olympics anymore. And
the World Baseball Classic.
World Baseball Classic.
There was one year where that was like super electric. I can't remember what year it was. I was in Atlantic City. I know that because it was going on
like
at the same time.
2016, 17?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Was Adam Jones a big part of that team?
Yep.
I think I remember.
Marcus Stroman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, you get up for it, but not the same. I feel like hockey and soccer bring you the most national pride in sports, and I think that's a good thing. I think like countries going at it together, it's awesome to have that.
Yeah, I mean, the way that the players talk about it, like, you're talking about something that isn't even the Olympics. There's Four Nations, and they were talking about that championship game like it was equivalent or meant more to them than a game 7 of a Stanley Cup final. Like it's crazy how much these guys cared. And, when they care, it makes it hard not to care. Like if they're playing with that much emotion and that much like that compete level within this exhibition, realistically, like it's hard not to feel that. So yeah, it was an awesome tournament in general, especially, man, like the first game, the way that started off between Canada and Sweden was electric. That overtime game, Sid was awesome in the very first game, so easy to get up for that one. Then obviously the way that the first US Canada game started, and I'm not like a fight in hockey, person. Like if they got rid of it, I wouldn't care. Like I don't think it needs to be a part of the game. But like I will say it was hard not to be invested in that happening just because it was like Matthew going against Hagel. So you got like the Florida rivalry there. And then Brady Tkachuk, Matthew's brother, fights one of Matthew's teammates with the Panthers and Sam Bennett. The third one I thought was stupid. It seemed like JT Miller just wanted to be involved with what was going on. So I didn't think that third fight really needed to happen. But the first two, just because of who it was as well with the Tkachuks, I got to say was pretty cool to see. But yeah, it's when you have guys that care that much about it, it makes you care.
Yeah, I loved it so much, and it made me so excited for the Olympics in 2026. We're only a year away, less than a year away now from the Olympic Games. I feel like the United States has such a good roster. You saw what they were able to do, despite losing in overtime to Canada. Like they are going to be one of the favorites in next year's Olympic tournament, and I'm so pumped up for it.
The big talking point for Canada, like the only reason that like people were saying, maybe the USA will win this, whatever, was the play in net, Jordan Bennington, because he was like realistically probably like the third option for them.
Why did he go back to 2019 for 10 minutes?
And he's realistically why they won.
Mark Stone should have, or not Mark Stone, excuse me. Austin Matthews should have scored like 4 times in overtime, and he didn't.
And then Austin Matthews is the one that left
McDavid
loose
open
in the slot. Yeah, that was like I saw a number on this. It was either the only or like one of 2 shifts that they didn't get Jack Eichel's line out against McDavid, and it happened to be Matthews out there against him, and McDavid scored.
That's unfortunate. Yeah, I mean, awesome tournament, awesome game, and I saw some ideas being thrown around for that tournament. Like expanding it out to like 6 teams or 8 teams. Here's the problem with that. This is to take place instead of an NHL All-Star game. So all of the players presumably would have to be NHL players or at least NHL affiliates. And if you're going by strictly NHL players, you can only roster 6 teams. And one of those teams doesn't even have enough defensemen to roster a full like normal roster that you would have to construct based off of who the teams are. So obviously you have the United States, you have Canada, and then you have Finland and Sweden. Russia could roster a team easily based off of how many players they have. The only other team that would be able to do it is the Czech Republic, but they only have 4 active NHL defensemen. So they would either have to pull from the AHL or from like their national team in Czech. And so that's why like it gets into a gray area with that if you're replacing it for an NHL All-Star game. I mean, I'd be down for it. Either that or you'd have to have forwards playing defense if you wanted to just have it strictly NHL players. But then like when you go past that and you include teams like Denmark or Germany or anything like that, they just don't have enough NHL players to do it. So as awesome as it would be to have like a more expanded tournament, you really realistically only have 6 teams that could feasibly do it to fill a complete roster with the NHL. But I'm down for it. Like if they had something like this every single year as opposed to an NHL All-Star game, I would be totally down for that because I remember seeing people post after like, how did we go from this a year ago? And it was like Kucherov lazily just like puck handling and their stick handling, and it was just amazing how much more you care whenever the players care, like you just mentioned. And also I gotta mention on here too that I love PK Subban in the NHL media. I think that he is the perfect advocate for what the NHL needs right now to talk about the game of hockey, talk about the NHL, and try to expand the game. I think that he speaks so well about the game of hockey, and it makes you excited about watching hockey and being interested in it. And he knows what he's talking about. And having been a elite player himself in the league. And I feel like when he was talking about comparing the NBA and the NBA All-Star game and like why people are so fascinated with the Four Nations tournament and why hockey is so great, and he was mainly strictly comparing it to basketball, is that like you just have a Sullivanism, that compete level that you don't necessarily always get in some of these other sports. And strictly speaking of basketball, especially basketball, you don't get that nowadays in basketball. You have people sitting out and due to like or health in quotations if you're not watching over on YouTube and whatever. And I just love hearing PK Subban talk, and that's why I just wanted to give him a shout out because I think that he's a great advocate for the NHL.
I hate PK Subban. First off, he is very. I mentioned how I'm not for fighting in hockey. He's very much like that needs to be a part of the game. So disagree with him on that aspect. The basketball thing to me, though, like he was comparing the All-Star game, right, of the NBA to this, which, as we just talked about, like if you were comparing the NHL All-Star game to the NBA All-Star game, they're actually very comparable. Comparing this to the NBA All-Star game isn't. It's like apples to oranges. When you talk about basketball on the Olympic level, those guys care just as much as we just saw the teams in the Four Nations. Like if you go watch that Court of Gold or whatever that documentary was on Netflix, like my God, those guys cared way more than I think a lot of people think that they care about the game, like playing for their country. So I don't know. To me,
sure, playing for your country, but I mean, I would disagree with anybody that says that the average NBA player cares more about playing basketball than the average NHL player, not for their country, just in general.
But like, I don't know. I'm not going to make that generalization just because I don't know. Like, I don't know the guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, how would we know that?
I mean, what do they call it when they sit out?
Load management.
Yeah, I think that's stupid. I think that is stupid. I don't think that it should happen. And to me, that is would be one of my biggest gripes if I cared about the NBA enough. Just because, and I'm not trying to take a shot at the NBA, be saying I don't care about it. I've never cared about the NBA enough in that sense. But I genuinely think that load management is one of the dumbest things that I have ever seen in any sport. And whether you're comparing it to hockey, whether you're comparing it to football, I don't care what sport you compare it to. Basketball players doing load management is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen.
But like who even, it doesn't happen that often though. Like I don't think it happens enough to have a conversation about it. And the players that you're talking about doing it, like LeBron James is 40 years old, like playing in the NBA 82 games. So knowing that he's going to make the playoffs and have to make a postseason run as well. The people that I feel bad for and why I don't necessarily care for it, but I understand why it's happening, is because people are paying for tickets to see him specifically. And it sucks if they don't get to see him. That's the only thing that I care about from that perspective.
Yeah, and that's probably my biggest gripe about it too. But I mean, I know that there's not a ton of players that do it, but there's enough where it is a conversation, and most of it is star players. Like I don't think it should be happening.
Like,
and
LeBron, Kawhi, who's had a lot of injuries really since they won the championship in Toronto in 2019. I know that he's been part of that. Joel Embiid, I would say throw into that bucket as well. Although, like, I think he's probably a different case entirely to talk about, and like his own team and fan base turning on him. But yeah, I don't know. I don't like doing the whole comparing sports thing, which is like another one of my gripes with PK Subban. And it very much seemed like an argument of like, please like my sport. Like he's literally just like trying to talk down to the NBA because he wants people to care more about the NHL. And it's never going to be as popular. Even though you and I obviously love the NHL and don't care much for the NBA, I just don't like when people go on those rants.
Yeah, and I get that. And I didn't mean for just that point against basketball in general to be why I like him as a vocal point. But I think that he is a young guy that is a charismatic player that people can get behind for your sport.
Sure. yeah, from that perspective, he's certainly entertaining. It's just he's one of the people that has gone on the Pat McAfee show enough where he has enough appearances where like I'm like, oh, I don't want to see him on here, and I'll like turn it off until I know he's off. I do like I just there's something about it. I don't know what it is, and it drives me nuts. He is well, thank God he's with Messi. Mark Messier might be the most boring person in the world, and for whatever reason they have him doing coverage. So he at least adds a different element to that team to make it palatable, but yeah, he just doesn't do it for me. But I do appreciate.
Well, here's the thing. Here's why I think he works for the NHL. Hockey players suck. Hockey players are boring. So if you're going to have a voice piece for the NHL, it needs to be someone with charisma like PK Subban. Even if you don't love what he's saying all the time, I think that the average NHL player is a boring person. We've had them on this show. They can be boring. And
yeah,
that's just ingrained into hockey culture. So when you have that rare player like a PK Subban that can bring charisma when talking about the sport, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I can appreciate that. And it doesn't have to be for me. I agree that like I think there needs to be somebody that does it. And when you take a look around the space, you're right. There's not many options because of the personality.
Like,
to be honest with you,
as much as I love Sidney Crosby, he would never be good at growing the game of hockey.
No. And then you look at somebody like Biz, right? Who wasn't a good player, but obviously has made his way into the media space. I'll be like, I think Henrik Lundqvist is like a nice medium. Like he's not like super over the top, but obviously super knowledgeable. And he can fit in within a team. Now, having like the type of role PK does, probably not. I don't think he could do all that, but I think he serves his purpose for sure. So, but yeah, I mean, I'll certainly give you that. Like somebody like him is needed in the space. So whether it was him or somebody else, and there's not many options because of the lack of personality there. So it's him.
The Kachucks will probably be really good at it one day.
That's honestly like who I was trying to sit here thinking of like current players, and I think it has to be. I don't know who else would do it. But
I don't know. People are too boring. that's the hard part about the NHL. They're boring.
Exactly. Yeah, most guys are either very good players or and bad at that, or they're not good players and they're good at that. PK was both. He definitely had his runs. I know it kind of fizzled out, but at one point was certainly a good player. So I don't know if he was good enough to consider him this, but the Chucks certainly game changers. What's going on, everybody? Smitty from around the 412, and I just want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our folks at Game Changers. Their logo on the screen right now, right above my microphone. Over 2,000 different designs in their catalog. Luxury heavyweight material. I am wearing one of their shirts right now. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Head over to gamechanger.la or pick6.la to pick up some shirts. And guess what? Use code AT412. Save yourself $10 on your order every single time. Again, gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Check them out. Certainly a Matthew Tkachuk shirt. Not sure about a Brady Tkachuk shirt on Game Changers, but save yourself $10 using code AT412 if you go and get a shirt from them. That ad says over 2,000. It's over 4,000 now. So 4,000 different designs in their catalog.
Yeah, we're coming up on a year since that ad was recorded.
and relevant, basically. But anyways, one more thing that I want to talk to before we get into the big topic to talk about on here. The goaltending for the Penguins. We've talked about this, like going back obviously to Tristan Jarry and his play. Not that we had high expectations for Alex Nedeljkovic either, but I think he's been worse than we even expected there. And then you look at the way that like Joel Blomqvist has played in a short period of time. There's got to be some concern there, not only for like these guys, right, but like the next guy, Murashov, right? Do we have any trust that they're going to bring him along the right way? Is it something with Andy Chiodo? Do they need to move on there? Because like that's kind of the point where I'm at, where I'm starting to question, okay, this is like too many guys in a row now that we're talking about being ruined, where something's got to give in terms of the goaltending coach.
I think that Andy Chiodo should be gone next year. I see no reason why that wouldn't be the case. as far as like the personnel goes, like Nedeljkovic, he had been already playing poorly throughout the entirety of this season, so that's not surprising. It does suck to see Joel come up and have this tough stretch that he has. Not that the team is necessarily playing great in front of any of these goaltenders, but like you're getting consistently several games in a row where you're seeing shots go in that should be saves, or at least you would think a guy could make a save now and again, but they're just not. And so I still believe in Joel Blomqvist. He's still so young that I feel like it'd be foolish to give up on a guy like him, but the goaltending at the NHL level is questionable, which is why I feel like you need to look to the coaching staff to make a change. If all of your goaltenders at the NHL level are having these types of struggles, that's the one common denominator that you can have between the three of them. And so moving forward, I think that they should move on from him. And I think that going into next season, like I don't think that what we've seen so far from Joel Blomqvist should be really a huge factor. Now obviously Nedeljkovic, was he brought back on a 1 or 2 year deal for Nedeljkovic?
Ooh.
I think it was a 2 year deal.
I would say two.
He's going to be on the roster next season, but I'm curious to see what you're going to do with, or maybe not, but I'm curious to see what you're going to do at goaltender. Like currently right now, as of like your active goaltenders, what's his name? Mikhail Murashov, or no?
Sergei
Murashov is your best goaltender. I mean, he came up to the AHL. He's posting like a 930 something save percentage. He's been fantastic. He was fantastic down in Wheeling. And so I still think the future of the goaltending position is bright for Pittsburgh between Murashov and potentially Blomqvist. I just think that Blomqvist is going through a really rough stretch right now at the NHL level. But prior to that, at the AHL, he was also performing very well. So I think that just because in these 5 or 6 games he's been performing poorly, I don't think that it necessarily reflects on him totality as a player because of looking what he was doing in Wilkes-Barre before he came back up.
The goaltending market does not look super promising in free agency either, at least right now as we sit here. Let's just get super nuts and just offer sheet Jake Ottinger.
At what number?
I don't care.
Because we've always been pretty, I don't want to say adamant, but like pretty on the side of like we don't pay huge contracts to these goaltenders.
Yeah, I'll be honest, like the recent stretch of goaltending might make me come around on that. This is like the running backs all over. Like, but no, in all seriousness, no, I don't want that to happen because we need Mitch Marner money. So we can't go and offer sheet Ottinger. But yeah, I think that that's the next logical step in terms of trying to fix something here is moving on from the goaltending coach, because I don't think that this can continue. I think something's got to give, whether it's even like him being the fall guy for an issue that probably shouldn't be on his plate. I don't know. But again, there's too many guys in a row now that have not succeeded here, and I feel like have gone in the wrong direction to not have somebody answer for it. So I'd be moving on from him. Was there anything else related to like the current Penguins team that you wanted to discuss?
Nothing in particular. For those keeping along that we're recording during an active game, 5 minutes left is still 4-4. So nothing right now.
Yeah, we would have updated you if anything happened a few days ago in this game that we were watching. The last thing to talk about, and it's going to take a somber turn here on around the 4-1-2. It's, is it too late to maybe be? I'm sure everybody's given their thoughts already on this. We have not recorded a podcast since Mike Lange passed away. It might have happened the day after we recorded the Steelers show. We didn't do a Penguin show last week.
Yeah, it did.
But I think it might have happened. So Mike Lange, legendary, I don't even want to say Penguins broadcaster, legendary broadcaster in general, legendary human in general, passed away last week. And it's one of those things where like it transcends sports. You see all the people that are obviously paying their respect to him and honoring him in their stadiums. And it's been awesome to see moments of celebration as opposed to moments of silence, which have been awesome. But I said I didn't want to specifically say Penguins, but if you are a Penguins fan, young or old, the name obviously rings bells, and it means something to you to hear that name. Regardless of what was going on, you hear it's a hockey night in Pittsburgh, and immediately you're dialed in. Mike Lange's voice brings you in, and for an entire game, you're captivated by the way that he's able to just sell the product to you, whether it's your first time watching a hockey game or however many hockey games you watched. And hockey, as much as I talk about the Steelers and as much as I despise loving the Pirates, hockey was the first sport, and the Penguins were the first team in Pittsburgh that I was actually a fan of. My dad brought me into hockey immediately, playing street hockey and adult league hockey, going to games with him, played goalie growing up. And the Penguins were the first team in Pittsburgh that I was actually a fan of. I was never a fan of another team, unlike with, football. I talked about all the time how I was a fan of different teams to piss my dad off. That wasn't the case with the Penguins. My first favorite Penguin, so random, Sebastian Caron. No idea why. A backup goaltender. Sebastian Caron was my first favorite Penguin. And I'll never forget, being able, like, growing up watching those terrible Penguin teams with my dad, but knowing, that Mike Lange was a part of that. And yeah, so this one hit really close and hit home for me, just because, I knew what we were losing in losing Mike Lange, even though he hasn't called a Penguin game in such a long time. To have as many great names associated with the organization as the Penguins have, and for him to still be on that short list of greats that you would associate with a name, like beyond Lemieux, Crosby, like, I'll be honest, like, I think you can make the case for Mike Lange being more synonymous with the team than even like Jagr and Malkin, those tier, like the tier under Lemieux and Crosby, but certainly at least within that conversation. So, like, top 5 names associated with the Penguins, despite all the talent that has actually played for the team, that says something about the name Mike Lange, and obviously going to be deeply missed. And Josh, who brings us in obviously on every episode, Josh Getzoff, I can't wait to get him back on here and have us tell some stories about Mike Lange and what he meant to him as a broadcaster.
Yeah, it was a shock for sure. And it's hard too, because it when we're speaking specifically of Pittsburgh, it's like Pittsburgh lost a part of its soul. Like, what makes the city of Pittsburgh the way that it is, specifically in the sports realm, lost part of itself. And it's hard. It's something that I don't think that you can really necessarily get over, because of all the memories that he was able to make with his voice. I mean, you think about some of the biggest moments in this franchise's history, and you attach his voice immediately to them. And I don't know if it was it Lemieux that said that, like pretty much everything that he did in the NHL had Mike Lange attached to it. And
yeah,
a lot of
think about it. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, majority of like what Crosby has done in his career has Mike Lange, whether that be on TV or in radio form, attached to a lot of his, and everyone in between. I just think that it's fascinating that you can have a guy that is in this franchise for over 40 years and transcend the franchise and the sport like that, where he's just so synonymous with this team and with these players that he is that big of a part of this organization. And like, it's crazy. Like, I don't think it's that outlandish, but like, I saw people like bringing up like Mike Lange should have a statue somewhere in or out of PPG Paints Arena. And I don't think that that's a bad idea. I think that that should be something that has happened for how impactful he has been with this franchise.
Yeah, I mean, certainly won't get an argument from me. All I wanted to say, I shouldn't have tried to cut you off there, but from 1976 until 2006, he was the lead play-by-play announcer for the Penguins radio and television network. He never missed a broadcast within that stretch. That's insane. I mean, so yeah, literally Lemieux's career did not miss a game within that.
Yeah. I mean, you think about some of the highlights of Lemieux, some of the highlights of Crosby, some of the highlights of Jagr, and like, you attach his voice to those highlights. Like, they're forever cemented to Mike Lange, and all of the sayings, of the phrases that he has.
All the, like, the playoff runs, like, he wouldn't be calling the game that we would see, but how there would always be the videos afterwards, like the radio synced highlights. Oh, yeah. Oh my God. Like, I'll still go back and watch those.
They were awesome. Yeah, they were awesome. And seeing those come up this past like week or so with the passing of Mike Lange, like, it was awesome to watch those again. But by the way, do you have a favorite? I was thinking about this, like, whenever this happened. And one that I'll go, like one that came to my
goal
mind.
Call in general or saying?
So saying, because probably my favorite is not a goal call, it's a saying. But it's not, I don't know that he necessarily said it all the time, but specifically whenever they won Game 6 in 2009, when he says, oh, meet me in the schoolyard for all the marbles. I loved that saying, and attaching that moment whenever Pittsburgh wins Game 6 in 2009 to that. I'm getting chills right now thinking about that highlight because it's just so memorable for me.
Yeah, I don't know that I have, like, there's so many that I would put kind of all within that same excuse me, bucket that I don't know if I could pick out just one. I feel like the one that resonates the most, especially right now with him passing, is Elvis has just left the building, because it feels like that's the one that's going to be obviously that people use now, because it's now, Mike Lange.
I mean, even when he wasn't passed, the Penguins played it after every single game whenever they win in the arena.
Yeah. I'm just going through here now, some of them. As far as like a goal, though, that's what I was trying to think about.
Even though it's
no, I know
it all the time.
And it's, again, it would be a radio synced one because the game was happening on at the time versus, but the Gino goal versus the Hurricanes, like the backhand one where he comes from behind the net. Yeah, that's probably my favorite one.
I was just going to say, even though it happens all the time, just the deep, gravelly he shoots, he scores is just electric no matter what. Yeah.
It's funny because, like, I actually, just because of like our age, obviously, like, he was doing the TV stuff until like 2006, and then they went with Paul Steigerwald. He decided to move into like a different role. Obviously, we're still doing stuff on the radio. I associate that specifically in a lot of things, like on the radio side as opposed to TV. So like I can picture like hearing it, and like he had a way certainly of painting a picture as if you were watching it, but like not actually seeing the game. You know what I mean? Like when he's making these calls. So I would rarely listen to games. Excuse me. So for me, it was more so about like afterwards seeing the radio sing stuff.
Yeah, he is one of the only broadcasters that I've ever had growing up in Pittsburgh where I did not mind listening to it on the radio.
Oh yeah, I always hated listening to games. Yeah, I couldn't do it.
So like obviously like I would prefer to watch them, but Penguins just won in overtime, by the way. Live update. I don't know if I'm ahead.
Oh, it wasn't Sid. You are. I mean, the second one that we would have said, right, was probably Gino, who that's his second of the game.
Yeah.
Also, dude, I've been fighting this tickle in my throat for like 10 minutes. So like,
all right, well, to close it out, you kind of alluded to this. I wanted to ask you though. So obviously you have Mario and you have Sid, but if you're making a Mount Rushmore of Penguins franchise, like he has to be on it, right?
So yeah, I mean, you're leaving one of Gino or Jagr off. And I think that you do that for Mike Lange. I'm honestly, and maybe I'm in the minority here, and I'm not like saying that the team has obviously forgiven him. They brought him back. The deciding factor for me is the fact that Gino will spend his entire career in Pittsburgh. So he's on it over Jagr for me.
Yeah. I'd probably pick Gino over Jagr too. Not necessarily as an all-time player, but just specifically Penguins franchise. But yeah, Mount Rushmore, I feel like Mike Lange's got to be on it.
Probably going to have people saying, what, no Fleury?
You going to retire his number next?
That's a completely different topic that I do not want to get into on this show, especially after, just talking about Mike Lange for so long. But yeah, I'll be excited to get Josh on here next time that we do and have a conversation. If I go to Mike Lange's Wikipedia, actually one of the photos on there is with Josh.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, which I'm sure is super, super cool for Josh as well. So excited to talk to him about that. But you got anything else you want to say?
No, nothing about Mike Lange. Nothing else about Mike Lange. Just super surprised that the Penguins actually came back and won in this game.
Yeah, almost upset, to be honest.
On Thursday night, even though this is coming out on probably Saturday. We haven't decided that yet, but it's probably
Saturday.
Probably gonna be Saturday.
Saturday, yeah. I don't even know how I'm going to work this in, especially after what we just talked about. So I'm not going to try to, because I feel like I could end up making a really bad, poor taste joke or something like that. So you know what? One of our sponsors, here's Teach Barbershop. Smitty from around the 412 here. And while I may not have much hair, the hair that I do have will not be cut by anybody besides Keith at Keith's Barbershop. My friend Christian Circle, been with us since day one. Keith's Barbershop, located 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app, The Cut. Book an appointment with Christian today, or you can do walk-in with Tony or Ashley. But again, Keith's Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Go check them out. Old school vibe in there. Absolutely love it. Cannot recommend them enough. Wouldn't go anywhere else. Maybe I'll see you there. Yeah. Anyways, I'm almost upset that the Penguins just won that game now that I think about it. Like, it's always cool beating the Flyers, but what are we doing? We're not going anywhere. We need that top 4 pick.
We are officially at the point, maybe for the first time in this podcast history, where we are like full on board to just lose the games.
Well, like, yeah, my case against tanking has always been like, it's not good for the culture, and like in the NFL draft, nothing's a given, but like in the case of the Penguins, like they need they need a top pick, they need some top end talent in the.
And they don't have a culture. I feel like the Penguins currently don't have a culture.
Yeah, it's not like it's ruined because you have guys that have obviously been there, done that, and you're not going to lose anything. Like you're still going to have Sidney Crosby, Gino, Letang, those guys. Like you're not losing anything by losing these games right now in terms of that. So yeah, I'm all for them just losing a bunch of hockey games, but they beat the Flyers, so I guess I'm never gonna be too upset about that happening. But anyways, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you were here on YouTube. If you're listening somewhere else, go over to YouTube to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Hit us in the comments your thoughts on anything that we talked about today, a question for a future episode, all that good stuff. Obviously, we're gonna have a lot of time to talk through things that are probably not related specifically to this team and just kind of getting through the grind of the rest of this season. But hey, trade deadline, I guess we could talk about in the very near future, right?
I suppose so. They were probably expecting more players to go from the Penguins team.
Yeah, I don't even know. Yeah, they traded Pettersson and Drew O'Connor already, so like that's kind of anticlimactic. So who knows?
I mean, maybe looking at like an Anthony Beauvillier or Michael Bunting, like who knows? Beauvillier would probably be my top. Is
Bunting going to be back?
That's true. I don't know, but
yeah, I don't know.
That's we'll see. It's coming up.
Yeah,
like next week, right?
Yeah, I think so. It just feels like it's because the Penguins don't have many. Like if we still had Pettersson and Drew O'Connor on the roster, maybe we'd be talking more about it. And if like Nedeljkovic was playing well and felt like we could offload him for something, but I don't know.
March 7th. So what is that?
Okay, so
next Friday.
Oh, okay, Friday. All right. Anyways, if you're listening somewhere else, leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, we are over there. Just search Around the 412. Do the same thing on all of our social media platforms. You can find us at Around the 412. Wherever you are listening or watching, be sure to check out the link to the description. GameChanger.la, Pick6.la. Save yourself $10 when you use the code AT412 at checkout. Everything Custom Designs, our friend Haley Wagner, small business. Our merch, your own customized merch. You can do it all except for hats. It's been a while since I've thrown that in there, so got to take that dig again. But yeah, a ton of our merch over there. Long sleeves, hoodies, t-shirts, whatever you need. You can also do whatever you want customized on any of those. Or shorts, DC4L customs, black, gray, white, whatever color you want over there. Be sure to check those out. And then Marcelo Electric right above Tyler right now. If you are watching on YouTube, our friend Boots, a.k.a. Well, I should have said his actual name. Brandon Marcelo, a.k.a. Boots. His real name's not Boots.
Boots, a.k.a. Brandon Marcelo.
I mean, to be honest, if his birth certificate said Boots, I wouldn't be surprised. So, anyways, Marcelo Electric, check him out. Be sure to follow that link. Beaver, Allegheny, Lawrence, Butler County, service calls, residential, commercial, whatever you need. He can help you out. Contact him at 724-614-0611. Again, that's 724-614-0611. But if you follow that link to his Facebook page, you'll see that phone number. You'll see the email to get in touch with him. And then you'll also see a ton of posts with work that he's done in the past. So be sure to hit him up. But that's it. Again, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Till next week, for Smitty, for Tyler, this has been the Around the 412 Penguins show, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.